Welcome. My name's Mark Smallwood, and joining me today is Maggie John. Some say Belgium's greatest exports are chocolate, beer and waffles, but I'd argue that Maggie is right up there, adding a touch of Belgian spice to the coaching world. Known for her candid humour, Maggie brings a fearless, down-to-earth style to her work that's as refreshing as a cold Trappist ale. She's in fine company with other famous Belgians like Action Legend, Jean-Claude Van Damme, surrealist artiste, René Magritte, and of course, the ever-elegant Audrey Hepburn. Just as Van Damme throws punches and Magritte twists minds, Maggie brings her unique blend of deep insight, humour, and a bit of sass to help people get their sheet together. And yes, she'll sort you out while keeping you laughing, thinking, and occasionally blushing. So grab yourself a cup of tea or a Belgian beer if you're feeling bold, and get ready for a lively chat with Maggie John, where coaching meets comedy and insights come with a side of cheeky wisdom. Maggie, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
As I promised you, I was going to ask you some searching questions. I know the answers will be of great interest to everybody, particularly anyone who has a form of neurodiversity. And we've discussed we both do enjoy the benefit of neurodiversity.
Exactly.
So, if I may, I'll begin.
Sure.
Maggie, I've got to know you over a few months, and it strikes me you've managed to stay grounded through a great number of challenges. When everything around you seems chaotic, how is it that you center yourself and find focus? What practical steps or mindset shifts help you avoid being pulled under?
Right. Well, there are three main things that I do, really. First of all, I need to talk to people. That's kind of like how I deal with stress. So I just talk to my friends, my partner, and that really helps me to calm down and also to see things from different perspectives. Because when I'm like overwhelmed, I just lose it, like everything is just, everything is shitty or dramatic or whatever, So it helps to calm my tits, let's say, to put it eloquently. That's one thing. Another thing is to move. I have a lot of nervous energy in my system, and so I generally move a lot. That's just the way it is. But especially when lots of things are happening all at the same time, I really need to stick to my workout routine. And if there's like something that happens acutely, then I need to go for a walk just to get that energy out. And it always helps. It always helps me to calm down, to again, just see things more rationally, let's say. Another thing I do is I tend to write to myself. So I vomit things out on paper, just anything that really bothers me or something that is really, overwhelming me. And then I also talk to myself in a nice way, like, hey, you got this, like affirmations. And just taking that moment to getting a view on everything that is going on, and then also to be nice to yourself is quite useful. Because I think for a lot of us neurodivergents especially, it is easy to go into this is shit, so I must be shit, so the world is shit, so everything is shit kind of mindset, right? And so this kind of stops that process. Okay. So those would be the most important ones, I would say.
That's really useful. May I deep dive into one or two of those?
Yes, of course.
I absolutely agree with you 100% about exercise. It burns off excess energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's great for physical health and mental resilience.
Yeah.
Talking to others, I would always say, depends on the quality of their opinion.
Yeah.
But I feel you understand what we might all mean by that.
Right.
I think the last one is around positive affirmation with your own voice.
Right.
Everybody in some way or another gets marked by their parents. It can be a gentle smudge, or in some cases, a much more traumatic. How would you recommend someone who perhaps has a very loud negative voice and a very quiet positive self-affirmation voice? How would you help them in your professional capacity to turn up the volume on the positive and turn down the volume on the negative?
Right. Well, honestly, all of this is just practice. It's like, training a muscle. And so what I did for years was CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy. And that really works on your thoughts and your mindset, and just you reprogram your brain, right? Because our brain tends to constantly go to the negative. Not for everybody, but let's say for most people, that's quite something that happens. So what I did in my journey was I would focus on the positives every day. For, I think, a year, I did this exercise. So I would think about things that I'm grateful for, what I like about myself, things that I thought I did well, and that was really just 5 or 10 minutes that I took out of my day on my way to work. And what that does is, in the beginning, you feel like a wank. Feel like you're just fooling yourself, like, what the fuck am I doing, right? But it really works. It really works. Like, because eventually you're like, you know what? Yeah, actually, yes, I like this about me, and I am grateful for that. And I think my life is really not so shit. It also really helps to look at what is going on in your life, and also what happened in the past. For example, lots of people struggle with confidence, right? And they think, but I can't do anything. And usually that's like a demon, I call them, in the shape of, I can't do anything right. I always fuck up. I am a failure, those kind of things. But it's interesting how we focus on those things, and then we don't focus on everything that went right, everything that we managed to pull off. And that can be a lot, that can be a beautiful relationship that you have, could be a business that you built from scratch. It could be, I don't know, graduating in and of itself, especially for neurodivergent, is like quite the feat. And so, again, just focus on all those positives and keep them right here. But it takes practice. It's not something that you just, flip on. You really do have to work to change your mindset and to change how you feel about yourself.
I feel that's a really useful tip. And so many things in life are achieved through consistently showing up.
Exactly.
And it's rare that we think about consistently showing up for ourselves.
Yes.
So that's a really good example. Thank you. Okay. So as a professional ADHD coach, you will have a unique perspective on the overlap between neurodiversity and high performance. Are you able to share some of the unexpected ways in which ADHD has empowered you, both personally and perhaps professionally?
Yeah, for sure. There are so many things, to be honest. So I'll try not to give you a list of like 10. But one thing that I absolutely love about my kind of brain is that I can be creative. And I think in a way that you don't often see. So our brain works in a different way, right? So generally for neurotypicals, they tend to flip between the two different networks that we have running inside our brain. So we have the default mode network, which is your brain kind of being idle. It's idling, right? So it's just ruminating, it's thinking, it's, and that's where creativity often comes up. And then you have the task positive network. And that is generally for neurotypicals, the network that actually pops up in the brain, that starts being active, and that actually focuses on the task at hand. So it quiets everything else. And then you actually focus on the task in front of you. But the problem, it's not necessarily a problem, it can be good and bad, for people with ADHD, is that we have both of those networks on at the same time. So that means that you might get emotional while trying to perform a task. But it also means that you have a lot of like other things going on inside your brain while you are focusing on one task, and that allows you to be more creative, which is great, and it has helped me a million times. My partner actually thinks that it's a beautiful thing that my brain just works in such a different way that I come up with the weirdest solutions, but they work. So that's beautiful. You obviously have the hyperfocus as well. So it's not that people with ADHD can't focus. We can focus, and sometimes we go overboard with our focus, but we can only kind of do that for things that are interesting to us, or that are super urgent, of course, or something that is new. You know, our brain needs to have like shiny things to focus on. So those are two very important ones. Then also one that is very useful in my job is that because it's so difficult for us to filter out sensory stimuli, we see and feel and smell and whatever, everything. And so that means that nothing is filtered, or not too many things are filtered out. Because of that, we actually can connect the dots much better because we just have all of that information. And so I feel like our intuition, or at least my intuition, is pretty spot on. Like I notice things that other people don't see, for example. And that's quite useful when you're working with people, or, you know, you're trying to get a business up and running, for example. So yeah, those are a few.
That's really interesting to me. So as you were talking, obviously also having ADHD, my brain goes all over the shop. I think the way I've described it to other people is, you know, you might see me sitting there like a sloth, utterly uninterested. But if the building catches fire and a car crashes outside and, you know, some broken glass falls in, I'm suddenly super active and do it before anyone else has realised.
Right, exactly.
And they've obviously said, how is it you see that? And how is it you see this? I feel the way you just described it, you capture all the information.
Yeah.
So I find people perhaps who don't have ADHD or another form of neurodiversity tend to focus on the words that are spoken more than all of the signals you're getting.
Yeah.
And the last person you really want to lie to is someone who's neurodiverse, because they're going, well, that's interesting. I know that's not true.
Right.
And I found in my professional career, you know, I've worked with some people who are would perhaps be said to have some narcissistic tendencies or a little sociopathic.
Right.
And the look of fear you see in their eyes when they know you've seen them
Yes.
is how I probably began to realize something's a bit different about the way I process information. So, yeah, that's really insightful. Something else I just wanted to touch on, you know, you hear about ADHD, it's a trend at the moment, which obviously those of us who have it find quite entertaining.
Right. Yeah.
I feel it's probably be under-recognized for most of our modern history. So it's not that I think suddenly more and more people are being diagnosed as it's trendy. I kind of look at it as, well, perhaps now it's accurately defining the percentage of the global population that actually has this. But I see it as a bit of a superpower.
Right.
Although at school it was obviously not presented that way.
No.
In any way, shape or form.
No.
So,
or in boring job.
Yeah, or any, and I know you will have also done things you find mind-numbing. So yes.
Plenty.
I think at that point, people with ADHD can become quite disruptive. I've heard.
Yeah,
So,
me too. I wouldn't know, but yes.
No, yes. All right. Well, look, I know because we've spoken before, and you're a prolific writer and podcaster on your Substack app, and I will put a link to that on the webcast as it goes out.
Yep.
Looking back on the tougher times you've experienced in your life, is there a specific challenge that perhaps whilst painful turned out with the benefit of hindsight to be transformative? And how did that experience shape who Maggie is today?
Well, I have a few, and usually it's connected to the countries that I moved to. So, um, let's say the start of my personal journey really started when I moved to Australia. So the idea was to go there for 6 months, and I ended up staying for 4 years, which is, well, happens. Um, and the thing is that I came from a very strict Catholic family, with lots of negativity, uh, lots of this feeling that the world is against you, let's say. And so, and of course, also just feeling anxious. Anxiety and depression runs in the family, let's say. And so I came from that environment. And then I just kind of plunked myself into Australia. And and that was obviously a shock to the system too, because also it's not like I am super extroverted. Now in Uruguay, since I came here, it seems like I've gotten a bit more extroverted, but generally, especially in the past, I wasn't. It was more like, oh shit, there's a group of people. Should I run or should I try and make an effort? Right? And so I got there, and it was like I was in the backpacker scene, obviously, and I'm not the kind of person to drink myself into oblivion or to smoke myself into oblivion. I don't give a fuck about any of those things, and I never have. And so I felt like an outsider, even as a traveler in that way. And so that was quite tough to deal with, and to deal with feeling lonely, of course, and feeling like I'm not in control. And as a recovering control freak, that was again a shock to the system. So everything changed all the time, and random shit happened, and lots of shitty things happened as well. For example, I ended up in a horrible toxic relationship in which I was completely controlled by this person and manipulated. And I needed to fight my way out of that situation to understand how strong I actually am, and to really look at everything that I'd done. Because again, remember where I came from. And then all of a sudden I just I go, fuck this. And then we went to Australia, and then I had to adapt constantly. And then I had to fight to get out of a shitty relationship, and I managed. And so that really was, I think, properly the start of my growth journey. That's really where I started going, you know what? Maybe I am worth it. Maybe I can fight. Maybe I can do a bunch of things that I never thought I could. Because if I can do all of that, I can do anything pretty much, right? And so I think that was a big one.
Totally. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. I have no doubt it was deeply unpleasant at the time. But
yeah.
as we both know, resilience isn't developed by being wrapped in cotton wool. Resilience is developed through overcoming adversity. Okay. You said something that got me thinking in there, and I wondered if there's a link, because you talked about you've never really cared about alcohol or smoking.
Right.
And I would be interested at a further point, unless you have data now, what the linkage is between addiction and the barrier perhaps that neurodiversity puts in the way of addiction. Because I've also been able to pick up and put down anything without being addicted to it. And I'm wondering if that's just us two, or whether that's common. That would be interesting to find out more about, I think.
Well, it's not common actually, but I feel like most people have some kind of addiction. And honestly, in a way, maybe that's kind of just part of being human. I don't know, because life can be tough. And so I think most of us will try to find something that soothes us, that, like, I don't know, that just makes life a little bit less sharp. And so there is, unfortunately, quite a positive correlation between neurodiversity in general, but especially ADHD and addiction as well. But again, addiction can take many forms. It can be addicted to relationships, to sex, to sugar, to caffeine, to so many different, to control. I mean, that's how I see it. I feel like you can be addicted in a way to control as well, and that was definitely one of mine. So
I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that.
No worries.
We're both coaches, but we coach in different areas. As a coach, I find you're constantly giving energy to support others. How do you balance that while also ensuring you make time for yourself, stay healthy, stay focused? Do you have some advice perhaps for others who want to support people but are finding it perhaps quite draining?
Right. Yes, it absolutely can be quite draining. What I do is I, first of all, make sure that the physical side of things is under control. So as you mentioned, making sure that you are healthy. So you sleep enough, that's a big one, because no sleep or not enough sleep really fucks with our brain in every possible way. Making sure that actually meet people enough, because it's incredibly important for our mental and physical health to actually socialize as well, and not just via text, actually meeting people face to face, or it was really needs via camera, no? That having a healthy diet, exercising, all those kind of things. Again, for me, I need to restore that energy. So it feels like I give out a lot of energy to other people, right? And so I've noticed recently that I when I talk to my friends, I am craving that energy back in some kind of way. And so I just kind of blurt things out, and I just, I kind of vomit all over them, my words and my life. Yeah, well,
Fabulous fabulous mental image there, Maggie. Thank you.
I know, yeah. That's going to bother me for a while. It's okay. But then so obviously I listen to them too. I'm not a shitty friend, right? But I do feel that in the beginning when I meet them, I just kind of get things out, and then they listen. Right, exactly. And that kind of restores that energy as well. So in that way, I think it's kind of like, I feel like I'm caring about people and I'm caring for people a lot. And then I feel like I need to be cared for in return. And that kind of restores that balance, if that makes any sense. Also, I just do things like, watching a stupid TV show, something that really you don't have to think about. You can just, again, take instead of give all the time. And it's usually something funny. So, humor really helps me a lot as well. And that's, I think, also why I love writing in a funny way, posting stupid notes on Substack, because it gives me energy. It restores that balance again.
I understand. I dare say you've also experienced this. There are some people where you spend time with them and you walk away going, "Oh my God, shoot me." They're like they've almost sunk their fangs into your neck and drawn all your essence out.
Yeah, emotional
and there are others who you just feel recharged. I think if I was honest with anyone, I would say I find I recharge better in isolation.
Right.
And the things I would particularly do, for me, I'm not great for sitting in a room and meditating. I kind of meditate by riding a motorbike and having to concentrate on the here and now.
Yeah.
Or, my other hobbies that require me to have high attention to fine detail.
Right.
It just means everything else gets tuned out. And that in itself is quite relaxing.
Right.
Do you have that in some way, or is it different for you?
You mean that I have things like active meditation in that sense?
Yeah.
They need
That's a
to,
really good way of describing it. Active meditation. Yeah.
right. Yes, 100%. Like I love cooking, for example, and that's like the one moment where I'm just leaving everything behind, fuck my phone at that point, and I'm just like cutting my vegetables and creating, really. Just creating in general, I think, is actually quite soothing in a weird way because you're still giving, but it doesn't feel like it's draining. It's more like maybe you're asking for energy when you create.
Mm.
I'm gonna have to think about that one actually. But yeah, I think something like that. Yeah, definitely that's something I do.
That's a really good comment, I think. As you say that, when I find myself in a creative mode,
Mm-hmm.
um, I I find myself quite excited while I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing it,
Yeah.
and like I don't know what the equivalent is, but I'd almost be going, oh, at the end, like I've done that, I've
Right.
achieved something. That's a
Uh-huh.
win,
Yeah.
and that is quite recharging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whether it's cooking, whether it's whatever it is, it doesn't matter, does it? It's
Yeah.
bringing the part of your brain to the table that
Mm-hmm.
you know usually is suppressed through childhood,
Right.
or certainly
Mm-hmm.
education system. Okay, that's brilliant. So, last question, if I may,
Yes,
Maggie.
of course. Yeah.
Um, life, life's rough patches
Mm-hmm.
can frequently teach gratitude in unexpected ways, I guess, depending on how you choose to look at them.
Right.
What are some things you're grateful for now that maybe you didn't appreciate when you were going through them in life, and how has that gratitude influenced your approach to resilience?
Right. Well, to be blatantly honest with you, I wasn't grateful for many things in the past. I was very much of the go, go, go mindset. I was constantly running. I was running just the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And so whenever I was proud of something that I accomplished, there was a little blip and that was it. Or when something beautiful happened, there was a little blip and done. And it was like, yes, but, and then I would go into reasons why it would be still shitty, or I still had to do something, or, or I could still do better. This was a big one as well, because again, recovering perfectionist as well. And so I wasn't very grateful for many things. And now I'm grateful for so many things, depending, of course, on my mood. Sometimes you just feel crap and then everything is crap. But I'm grateful, especially for the people in my life, because I do believe that we are here for connection
Yeah.
more than anything else. And so that is something that I regularly think about, that I have such beautiful people in my life. And obviously the wankers I booted out. So, I have beautiful people in my life. And I'm very grateful for that. But I'm also grateful for my own strength. I'm grateful for what I did in my life, what I managed to pull off. That might be a weird thing to be grateful for, but I am grateful for that. And I'm proud of that as well. And I think that is the key to, in a way, to be resilient. I mean, I was resilient in the past. Um, it's just that life is so fucking heavy, right? So I was resilient. I was fighting. I managed somehow. I managed. But life was heavy. There was no light in there. There were no colors in there. And the minute I started working on gratitude and positivity, all of a sudden the world became something beautiful again. Like I could see colors again, whereas in the past it was black and white in many different ways. Now it's a painting. It's there are plenty of beautiful colors in there, and so I think it really helps resilience in that you don't have to stop because of depression, because of anxiety, because of burnout, because of overwhelm, right? So you can keep going and you can also be happy while you are doing that. And that is not something that I did in the past. I went from burnout to burnout or from depression to depression. And so, yeah, that just honestly sucked balls, really. So I can't recommend it. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah.
That's brilliant, Maggie. Thank you for your candor, for your fruity language, for your comfort with sharing personal stories. I know when I first, I can't remember if I read or listened to your first podcast, I found it really entertaining. It was entertaining because it spoke to me at a level where I felt that, that she could be describing me in her voice, in her language, but she's certainly describing my experience.
Right.
And I think you are fearless, which takes some balls
Right.
to just put it out there. And usually someone who's fearless has had to push through quite a lot. So that makes you a very interesting person. And I've no doubt that anyone who's lucky enough to be coached by you will see marked improvements with their ability to handle neurodiversity or anything else they're looking for in life. So thank you so much for being my business friend. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us all today. And I'd just like to thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you so much for everything.
Pleasure.